ho, ho, ho. Yeah. Happy Halloween. I figured I'd at least get that out of the way, especially before we get any more werewolves or ghosts or goblins coming in. Or maybe Frankenstein will come in looking for something and he'll pop an electrode. Of course, I can do a good Frankenstein. And where's Colin Clive when you need him? It's alive! It's alive! All right, enough of the ghosts and goblins. You know what? We've had them at SU for 8 years. You'd think you'd see the imprint he's put on the program. And first 4 games, offense was doing good. Last 4, especially the last 3. Dino has had his chance to put his imprint. And 8 years now, you'd think he'd have something. But when we play the big guys, what is it? Well, to use something that hockey fans would do, this is the way I'm going to say it. Dino, 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 you suck! There, I said it. Much like what Rochester American fans would say to the opposing goalie when we score on them, or what Buffalo Sabre fans would say to the opposing goalie. Hey, that's true. Where has this team been the last 3 games? I knew this would be a murderous time of the year. First Clemson, who, right now kind of looks pretty ordinary. They're 4-4 and getting ready to go against Notre Dame at noon on Saturday. Heck, there's a chance the Tigers could possibly have a losing season. But I don't know. And then, boy, did we lay duds against North Carolina. And we allowed North Carolina to pass and run all over us. Same thing with Florida State. But look at what happened against Virginia Tech. I knew going into Blacksburg would be tough. But hey, we've gone into Blacksburg before, and we played pretty good and beaten the Hokies. We made the Hokies look like superstars. No offense. 0 yards rushing. Come on, guys. Plus, we allowed the Hokies to gobble all over us. 38-10. Boy, SU is in a real rut right now. A real mess. And it's time we turn the page from October into November. We gotta get out of this quagmire. But part of me's wondering now if this is gonna be Babers' swan song as Syracuse's coach. I hope Wildhack takes a look at these last 4 games and finally realizes that Dino, his run, I think this is enough. For God's sakes, will somebody kind of get the idea that maybe we now need some new blood? Of course, some people got ideas about trying to get one of the assistant coaches from like an SEC school to come up here. Someone from like Alabama, Mississippi, Auburn, or whatever to come up here and try to see what they can use of their SEC experience to right the ship. And especially with the way the schedules have come out for the next 7 years, with the addition of Cal, Stanford, and SMU to the ACC, it's going to be an interesting next 7 years. But hey, how much more of this bull do we take from Dino Babers? And when Eric Dungy, one who led Syracuse to that 10-3 record years ago, really criticizes the demeanor of the team, especially how undisciplined and how they were on the sidelines, that should tell you something. It's time we turn the page. We close with Boston College, Pitt, Georgia Tech, and Wake Forest. All hopefully winnable games. But even I don't know about that. You know, it's time that Dino Babers goes. Wildhack, and thing is, you gotta wonder about Wildhack. The buck stops with him at times. You see how down Syracuse has been with its three main sports teams the last several years. You gotta think, is it the coaches or is it the athletic director? Maybe they ought to take a good long look at Wildhack. Is he really the solution? Well, whatever. That's my thought about the SU's football team. Because, hey, Dino, let's face it, you suck! Now let's go from talking about one coach to another who's about to start his tenure at Syracuse. Adrian Autry. He's done a pretty good job trying to get the fan base, trying to do recruiting and everything, because it's about to start. SU's basketball season is here. A nice little win against Damon College of Buffalo. Then we got the College of St. Rose for our other exhibition game. And Monday, our first game of the season against New Hampshire. And you know what? It's time for the Adrian Autry era to begin at Syracuse. And he's caused a little bit of a buzz. And I mean, from the way I looked, Kadir Copeland and Judah Mintz and others looked pretty good in the game against Damon. Although I was a little uncomfortable about Damon kind of hanging around all that time. But you know what? Hey, continuity is the thing. First game of the season. And we'll see what they do against the College of St. Rose in the other exhibition. But we'll see. The season's about to start. Monday against New Hampshire, and next Wednesday, even though I'll do my show before then, our old friends in Buffalo at Canisius. So we'll see. It's the start of a new era, new season, and let's see what Adrian Autry and the Syracuse team does. Because, hey, I've yet to go, you suck, to Autry like I do with Babers. We'll see what happens. And I'm going from talking about the Syracuse basketball team to seeing that Buffalo finally has righted the ship a little bit. Yeah, they went up tempo. Yeah, the offense looked pretty good, especially in the first half. But what the heck is this conservatism, McDermott? Yeah, you took your foot off the gas in the second half. You know, once you get a team down, you go for the jugular. That's what a good team does. We didn't go for the jugular, and in fact, we allowed Tampa Bay to go on a long drive in the fourth quarter, and yet we had to survive a Hail Mary pass. Buffalo, in some ways, it's still not righted. Yeah, the offense finally got righted, and Josh Allen looked pretty good. But he needs to get righted because of the schedule that's coming up. Yeah, Cincinnati next on Sunday. Then Denver, who surprised Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. And also the Jets, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and all coming up. It is going to be a tough stretch. And Buffalo and Josh Allen need to be on their game. What happened for 3 straight weeks cannot happen again. If Buffalo is to qualify for the playoffs, we need to take the buffers off, take the reins off there, McDermott. Let them play like they did in those 3 weeks where they were unstoppable. Yeah, and finally we got Gabriel Davis and Khalil Shakur involved, and also Dalton Kincaid is finally coming into his own. And he has to, with Dawson Knox out with a wrist injury. But I will say, kudos to Brandon Beane, because he signed Leonard Fournette. And Fournette could still be a force there in the backfield. And today is the day that the deadline is for the trade deadline. And is Beane going to pull a deal? We need help along the defense. Maybe he can. And from everything I've seen, it looks like Kyer Elam could be on the trading block, because he hasn't embraced Buffalo's defensive style, and it's looking like he's a trade bust. Well, we'll see, especially with the Bengals coming up, the suddenly hot Cincinnati Bengals. And boy, I mean, I don't like the idea of Joe Burrow being his arrogant self again, and especially those hideous outfits he's known for wearing. I mean, it's going to be an interesting stretch coming up for the Bills. It's about halfway. Now let's see what happens in the second half for the Bills with these games coming up. Last but not least, how about that game between Mynderse and Waterloo? It was like old times. Although for the first half, Waterloo dominated, but Mynderse came roaring back in the second half. And I mean, it was a battle. A typical battle when you got two old rivals finally playing each other again. But I mean, typical of Mynderse and Waterloo. Tons of penalties. You're always going to have that when we got two teams. They're only a few miles apart, but also has hard feelings. You're going to have that. Waterloo won. But I mean, it was nice to see the rivalry back on again, and let's keep it going. Hopefully the Finger Lakes High School Association and everything took note of this. We need rivalry games, not the way it was the last few years where we had to travel almost 100 miles to play an opponent on a Friday. Heck, that's a 2-hour ride, and that takes a lot out of a team. Well, what nice game. And I mean, it was an interesting week, and it's going to be an interesting week coming up. Boston College coming into the Dome, but Cincinnati and Buffalo playing on the field where Damar Hamlin collapsed. And I mean, there's going to be emotions riding high for that one. And also the first game of the season for the Syracuse basketball team that really counts. It's going to be an interesting week, and that's all I got time for this week. One more thing, Dino. You suck!